The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
Alright, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat about way. We're with you to prepare for takeoff. Start. 2, 1. Boost ignition and liftoff.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's good to have you along for the ride on this Friday night. April 28th, Saturday, April 29th. If you're on the East Coast, hope you've had a great day and night as we are live right here in British Columbia in Uncle Jimbo's cabin right here in the Great White North. We do this thing 7 nights a week. All of our music is provided by Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Yes, Bumblefoot is the official sound of Spaced Out Radio. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial radio stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are also live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans at over 160 countries around the world. We're live on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, our brand new affiliate, KTLK The Fringe FM. Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you're a social media junkie like I am, do me a favor, give us a follow on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can follow me on Instagram, Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player FM, and Stitcher. And our website is SpacedOutRadio.com. If you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. You got to sign into one of the chat rooms, either on our website by clicking Listen Live, on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, or if you're one of the lucky ones, like Gail, who is a member of the SOR Space Travelers Club, or if you're on Twitter, just use the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. I'll get to your questions and comments in there as well. If you head to our website, for $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler yourself. We also have a news section. It's really good. The Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal and what's going on that's a little bit cryptid in a way. It's brought to you by our editors, Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. You can also check out my latest blog there as well. And if you've had an experience you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. We're going to find out what's going on with you. Hey, it's the final Friday of the month, which means it's time once again to bring in our great panel. For the first few minutes, we're going to be joined by Everett Thiemer and Eric Cooper. Then, James Tyson from Space Out Weekend is going to join us in about half an hour to 45 minutes. He's doing fatherly duties right now. And he will be joining me, Everett, and Eric as we get into everything paranormal and what's happened in the month that was. You see, we do this show the final Friday of the month because it's the ability we have to finally chill out, relax, and have a good time. We push pretty hard here on the Mighty SOR, bringing you some amazing topics and even more amazing guests because we care about you, our valued listener. And you know who you are. You're right there. You're listening right now or on other nights. So this gives us a chance to have some fun. Remember, if you have any questions for the panel tonight, we want to get into them. So do me a favor, if you don't mind, type your questions if you're in one of the chat rooms in capital letters so I can get at it and bring that question or two to the panel. From Forest Moon Paranormal, we have Eric Cooper and his beard. He's got a great beard, people, so make sure you cheer on his good beard. And we got Everett Thiemer, who has hair that goes all the way down to his waist. Because you know I like good hair around here, because I don't have much. Gentlemen, welcome.
We got to get you growing some.
I know.
We do.
I know, but
and a beard.
You know what the problem is? And I'll tell you the reason why. I would love to. But this isn't a conspiracy. There's no tinfoil hat being worn here, Everett or Eric. Okay? I have a white-collar job in my daytime. I have one of those desk jobs where I gotta, be presentable in front of clients. I have to be presentable, wearing a nice dress shirt, pants, dress shoes, even though my socks are kind of funky. Yes, I'm in the funky sock craze. But I just can't right now, because of my clients, bring in a nice, hefty, manly beard. Nor can I grow out the mane so I could look like Everett or one of our listeners, Joe, who has just an amazing mane. And I'm jealous of this, guys. I'm very jealous of this. And that's why I bring it up so much on this show, is because, you know, I like good hair. At hashtag Spaced Out Radio, Deb just put an amazing beard on there. It's fantastic. I want one of those.
It's not hers.
No, it's not hers. At least I hope not. But that's
See,
just
that
the way it
doesn't
goes.
count, though. That doesn't count unless you're wearing the beard.
You're going to make it difficult tonight, aren't you, Cooper?
He makes a point.
Because I mean, and no, a picture of a beard is great. Don't get me wrong, but it takes a talent to grow one.
Yes.
You can go on Google and find all kinds of beards, but they're not wearing it.
You know what? I actually read a comment, and I'm sure you guys would agree with that as well when I say this. And I'm not using it as my own comment, but I think it is something that we need to, you know, adhere to. If you are growing a beard, or if you're a man out there who grows a beard because it's trendy, and if you have a beard and you do not know how to change the oil on your car, or you don't know how to change a flat tire, or you don't mow your own lawn, you don't deserve the beard. You don't deserve the beard. If you don't own a chainsaw, okay, if you have a beard and you don't own a chainsaw and a plaid shirt to go along with that chainsaw, you don't deserve your beard. I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on now. Hold on. I've got a plaid shirt, and I don't own a chainsaw for the mere reason that I cut down a tree and it landed on my head. So for my own safety, I do not own a chainsaw.
Yes. But what I'm saying though is, you know what, dude? You know, there's a difference here. Okay, you're a military veteran. You've had combat time. Your cojones are bigger than most men who listen to this show. You've been there, you've done that, and you shot the bullets to go along with it. So you get the beard.
Okay.
Anyhow, that's just the way it is. All right, let's bring some formula to this show. Let's bring some formula to this show, because John's already like, is this the bromance channel on hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter? Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, John also says on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, if you wear skinny jeans, shave. And shave was put in capital letters with 4 exclamation points. Could not agree more. Could not agree more. If you drink lavender tea, you should not have a beard. I'm sorry.
If you're wearing skinny jeans and drinking lavender tea, you should maybe think about having that man card removed or revoked.
Right? I can get on board with that.
Fully agree. Gentlemen, it's the Paranormal Roundtable. We do this show the final Friday of the month. And you know what? We had some really cool topics this past month. And it's hard to believe April is said and done for this show. And we are already looking forward to May. And we got some really, really heavy and cool topics coming up next month for everybody. Starting off on Monday night with author Kevin Sullivan, who's written a true crime story based on the killings of Ted Bundy. And I'm looking forward to that as we bring more true crime into Spaced Out Radio land here.
I think that's going to be really interesting.
It is. We got a couple of real good true crime stories next month. But in the end, we got to look at April that was. We met a new friend on this show, Elizabeth April. And I have to tell you, a couple of things happened this month that I've never seen on this show. Going back to April 3rd, we had Simon Entwistle on, who absolutely captivated us with his British accent, telling us stories about Jack the Ripper and all the haunted tours that he does over in England. And before he came on at Gary Heseltine in late March, we had never, ever had our chat rooms absolutely shut down before, where people were not even communicating. They were there because I was checking up on them. They were there, but they were just absolutely glued to the radio or their computer or their cell phone, listening to absolutely everything that we do and everything that the speaker was saying. We never had that before. And the
he was a helper. He was a hell of a storyteller. He was a good guest.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he was. And you know what? We are going to be bringing Simon back on right before Halloween, so that way he can tell us some really cool, freaky ghost stories from around England. That's going to be fantastic. Okay, but the other thing that we had strange happen this month was this young lady out of Toronto. Found her on the internet as we are scooping and trying to find guests on a monthly basis, which we are currently booked 5 weeks in advance. Gotta love when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But, excuse me. But Elizabeth April, at 24 years old, I could not believe the comments that we were getting from our audience that night. So much so, after the show, and even during the show, and the next day and the following day, I actually had probably 30 or 40 listeners message me on social media or on email asking, is she going to be a monthly guest? We need her every month. So starting in May, we're granting our audience their wish. Elizabeth April will be coming on starting in May. She'll be on May 10th. And then after May 10th, which is a Wednesday, she will take the first Tuesday of every month as a new Spaced Out Radio regular guest on this show. You wanted her?
That's great.
Yeah, we got her for you. And she's going to be doing some stuff on our website as well, which is going to be really cool. So I tried to get her into the Roundtable tonight. She messaged me and said she couldn't do it. I mean, she's 24. Does she really want to hang out with a bunch of 40-somethings who are as unattractive as we are? I doubt it. Right? So I'm pretty sure, at 12:17 in Toronto right now, I'm sure she's out partying or gallivanting. Yes, Joe, you missed Dave's hair fetish. Yes, you did. So, anyways, don't all speak at once, panel. I want to get into what we came here to discuss. We all have topics that we're going to get into tonight. But last night we had probably one of our most controversial topics ever on the show. And whether or not you believe in flat Earth, and I'm going to tell you right now, I do not. I really do not. Okay? But whether or not you believe in it is irrelevant. The one thing that I was absolutely blown away by last night was the hatred that people have for people who believe in this conspiracy. And it is weird because, as our guest Daniel Falkenbach said last night, okay, we have people running around, myself included, okay, who believe in aliens. We have people who believe 9/11 was fake. We have people who believe that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill JFK. We have people who believe there's a secret space program and we got men on the moon and men on Mars. We've heard them all on this show. Yet for some reason, when it comes to flat Earth, we absolutely loathe and despise the people who believe in that topic. Everett, I'm going to start with you on this one. Do you think that's a fair assumption of people who think just a little bit differently?
No, I think I can understand why the people who believe or know that the Earth is round get angry about it and feel strongly about the topic, but I don't think the anger is justified. I think that there are the people out there who, a majority of the people who accept that the earth is round, and I'm part of that group, and they look at these flat earth people and just see them as too ignorant, that, there's all this evidence. We have pictures, there's mathematical formulations you can use to prove that the earth is round. There's all this evidence, but these flat earthers seem to ignore it. And I think that's the part that really, really stirs up the anger.
Well,
I think...
You know what amazed me last night, Everett, was actually when I started, because about an hour before the show, I'll start posting everything on Twitter, what we were talking about. And I actually had this UFO guy, say, nope, unfollowed me on Twitter because us as a journalistic show decided to do a show on flat Earth. Okay?
That's a little petty.
Yeah. But that's a lot of people. Okay, you wouldn't believe the private messages I got from people saying, why are you even doing this topic? It's a waste of time. I'm not tuning in. I probably got 9 or 10 of those.
And that's not fair because, you give everybody a chance on your show. Everybody.
And, here's... Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm dumbfounded, Everett. To be honest with you, that is petty. I didn't care for the guy, to be honest with you. I do have a hard time with flat earthers, with the concept. I don't hate them. Everyone's got their own opinion. Everyone's got their own views. Everyone's got their own theories. But scientifically, I don't understand flat Earth. I really don't. It's inconceivable to me. That's all. Do I hate him? No.
One of the things he said, though, was that he trusts what he sees with his eyes. So if I step back from the topic and I just look at it from just what I see, and let's assume that I don't know that much about math and I don't know, a lot about physics. If I step back and I look, I can see how he can come to that conclusion. And, one of the things that he did say, and that is an interesting point, and it got me thinking, is that I have no evidence, physical, visual evidence, that the earth is round. There's pictures, but like we've said last night and on numerous shows, pictures can be faked. The only pictures we have are from space that I didn't take, you didn't take. So if somebody wants to only trust what they see with their eyes, I can understand, at least. I can accept that he can come to that view. I don't agree with that view. I wish a lot of these flat earthers would be a little bit more open to looking at the scientific, mathematical evidence that the earth is not flat. But that brings in the closed-mindedness, and I think that's what helps fuel this anger.
True.
You know what, though?
Here's my...
Go ahead. Let me just get this in here, Eric, first. One of the things that I will say is, to defend our guest, Daniel, last night, that was the first time. He said he had spoken publicly about it, but that was the first time he had been on live radio. Live radio, there's no editing, there's no redoing. We're going for it. Whether the show is an A+ show or it is an absolute bust, we have to bring out the topic. And I'm going to bring up a comment here, because I think this is important. If we go to hashtag Space Out Radio on Twitter, one of our regular listeners, whom I absolutely love and adore, Deb, is saying, Dave, I don't want to be petty, but I'm not going to listen to BS. I change my life around to listen. And I get that. I fully get that. The problem that I had last night was, okay, it's great to throw a bunch of comments out there of what you believe, but you have to prove it. And throwing out a bunch of comments, I don't think our guest, as much as he was trying, I don't think he convinced any of us. Okay? Because when I look at it, I see this flat earther absolutely saying mathematics is not proper, that all the equations are wrong, so 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. All of physics is wrong. All of chemistry is wrong. And I don't believe that. Physics, chemistry, and mathematics are what makes up this world. It makes up everything. Except maybe Kim Kardashian's ass. But that's a different topic. Right?
I agree. I will give... Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, let me just finish this. But as journalists, because we're not... I want people to understand, we aren't podcasters. We aren't people playing radio. I'm a journalist. Okay? And I'm not doing my job as a journalist if I'm not asking those questions. If I'm not delving into these topics. So love or hate the topic, you know what? I'll tell you right now, we'll probably do it again. Not for a while. But we'll probably do that topic again. Because there was a lot of unanswered questions last night. Eric, I know you were going to say something before I cut you off.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say that explains a lot as far as that was his first show. Because every first show is nerve-wracking, especially to go a full 3 hours. 3 hours alone, when you've been on the radio for a while, can be nerve-wracking and tiring. And I mean, he was put to the fire by Markham, hands down, with science. So it explains a lot as to he was stuttering in the end because he was trying to answer, and I think a lot of his answers he was grasping for when it came down to the end of it. But I still can't. And no, none of us have been to space. We haven't seen the globe of the Earth to prove it's round. But I have a hard time accepting that there's a wall of ice keeping us all from floating up. Where's this wall of ice at?
It's always just out of view. Wherever you go, you can't quite get there.
I don't understand that.
Well, a 1,000-foot wall of ice should be noticeable at some point.
Right?
It should be noticeable at some point.
Using his arguments and logic, yes, it should.
Okay, part 2 of my question. Let's move this forward here. Part 2 of my question is this. How can we buy the argument that Flat Earth is a conspiracy by the elites to control the minds of people on this world?
Because there's enough out there without Flat Earth. Flat Earth is just a drop in the bucket. And to be honest with you, I haven't even ever thought of the Flat Earth theories until last night because it's so inconceivable. I mean, we've got religion controlling people. They use that. We've got, politics controlling people. They use that. They've got enough out there controlling people and dividing people. They don't need to use the Flat Earth.
Yeah, I don't buy the conspiracies at all. I think what I can't get a hold of in my head is back, 500 years ago, the religions and powers that be did not want the earth explored. It's like they flip-flopped. We've gone from these powers that be felt one way, and then they felt a different way, and then they felt another way and flip-flopped again. It's almost a conspiracy theory beyond conspiracy theories. It's just too much, but I think it gives the flat earthers an argument for their beliefs. We can't prove or disprove that there's a conspiracy theory about this. So they have something to stick their hand in and hold on to help support their argument.
Well, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a challenge. Okay? One of these years, if we're ever lucky enough on this show to be one of the big nighttime shows in this genre, where we got a couple hundred radio stations following us, and, there's a little bit more money to play with, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put that challenge out there. I'm going to charter an airplane, and we're going to fly around the world. Up, down, north, south. Yes, it's going to cost a pretty penny. However, we're going to grab a bunch of our listeners, and we're going to take them on this plane, because we're going to go find that damn wall. I want to know where that wall is. Okay? So we're going to go find that wall. And that is my promise. We make this thing go big, this show go big, and all of a sudden, radio stations are throwing buckets of pennies at us. Well, in America, because we don't have pennies up here in Canada anymore. It'll be nickels for us. Okay? We're going to put them all together. We're going to go down to Boeing Field in Seattle. We're going to rent and charter a plane, and we're going to go flying around the world. Okay, we're going to take a trip for about 10 days, go flying around the world. Let's find that ice wall. Because I think from up there, from 30,000 feet, with binoculars, we might be able to see it if it exists. And if it doesn't, well, damn it. Then that was a big waste of money.
That was something that I was a little surprised Markham didn't touch on a little bit more, being in the Navy, is that how does he explain when a ship sails around the world? I didn't hear him. Maybe I got caught up in the stuttering and confusion a little bit, but I didn't hear him explain how a ship could sail from, let's say, Long Beach to Hawaii to Japan, back around and down and come up in the Atlantic. He never really touched on that.
Well, and my other question, and maybe he answered it, I don't know. I was baffled the whole show. But okay, so at nighttime the moon is up. During the sun, Andrew and his crew in Australia have the sun, and they have pictures of it. They showed it. So how do you explain that? Is the sun on the other side of the ice wall?
He did kind of touch on how the two rotate a little bit. It was a tough explanation to follow, I think.
Now, preacher's in the chat room saying, I did, Everett. He blew off the question. I called BS on him in hour 3 on it. Okay. You know what? I'm tired of the flat Earth. Give me 6 months. Give me 6 months to re-energize over that thing, and we'll get things going. James Tyson is about 5 to 10 minutes away. He is just combing his beard before he hops on in.
Outstanding.
Absolutely it is. All right. Coop, you got a question for us for the panel tonight?
I do. And okay, so I've got two questions involving paranormal and kids, and there's a reason behind that. So Forest Moon Paranormal has been seeing a rise in child cases, and as some of you know, that's one of our emergency response criteria. Now, is it because, and this isn't the question, but my focus on that is it because parents are starting to look for more help for their kids, or is it because kids are awakening more? Now, my question is, if you have a child and they're drawing these horrific pictures and they have an imaginary friend, is that paranormal? Should we be concerned with that being paranormal, or is that an overactive imagination? How do you tell the difference?
That's a good question, my friend. I'll tell you. I have 3 kids, and I can tell you that each of my children are special in one way or another. My oldest daughter has been seeing ghosts since she was about 1.5 years, 2 years old. My middle daughter is, whether you believe in them or not, I believe in them. She actually has the ability to call in fairies around her, and she has also seen and interacted with people on the other side as well. And my little guy, who is 3, he'll be 4 in June, he also is starting to see. And I think as parents, as we grew up, most of us, we grew up in a situation where we were always told, oh, that's just your imagination. There's nothing there. Go to bed. I don't know how you guys grew up, but in my family, we weren't a very communicative family, which I think is ironic considering I talk on the radio every night. But if it wasn't small talk, which was what was happening in sports, what was happening in politics, or the battle between Pepsi versus Coke, it didn't get discussed in our family. That's just the way we were brought up. And sad, really. And, that bugs me. But the whole idea behind it was, we were brought up in a very, very strict household where if you saw something weird or strange, don't argue it, because that's only going to get you in trouble. It's just your imagination.
Right.
And it wasn't until I had my children that I started noticing it. And I started opening up to it. And I think what's happened here, and this is just my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, debate me if I'm wrong, we can talk about it. Okay? Because that's kind of what this show is for. But I think that the more that we see people pulling away from mainstream religion, for whatever their reason is, and we're not going to debate that tonight because everybody has their own reason, but they are still searching for that spirituality, that belief system. And the more that they open up their minds to try and see what's out there, that's what's opening up what the parents are seeing. And because they're not pressing those indoctrinated beliefs on their children and letting their children, more or less these days more than ever, have that ability to choose and to have that imagination, whether it is or not, I think that's why we are seeing more experiences coming forward with children.
I think I would agree. I think that, religions close your mind to basically just accept their doctrines and their beliefs. If you pull away from that and you just open yourself up to, you could say, nature, to, the higher powers, if you just open yourself up to everything and anything, I think you become more in touch, and probably that would make it easier to have experiences, to see ghosts, interact with the paranormal, versus, following that one path that somebody tells you have to follow and that one set of guidelines.
So
completely agree. Now, being raised Christian, everything was a demon. I mean, if I was to see a UFO and tell my parents, "Oh my God, they're demons," or aliens are demons, that's the epitome of it. And I agree with you, Dave. More and more people are getting away from organization of religion and having a higher power versus going to a building and developing your own spirituality with your kids. You do open yourself up more to other possibilities. So I completely agree with that.
You know what, though? Canadian Joe at hashtag Space Out Radio also brings up a good point here. He says, mainstream society can close your mind up too. And that is very true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I mean, with everybody getting a participant badge now at school, where there's no win or lose, there's no pass or fail. Okay? We are limiting people.
And I think today, too, if a kid was to go to school and tell their teacher that they're seeing spirits, that teacher would maybe call the parents
Let me give you an example on that. Eric, let me give you an example on that. And I've mentioned this on the show before. I'm not sure if you've heard it. Okay, my daughter, the one thing I didn't want my daughter to inherit from me was my depression and my anxiety. And she got it. And I feel very guilty about that. In fact, I get depressed and anxious about that, as coincidental as that is. Okay? However, I made the mistake one day because she was going through counseling, okay, because she was having trouble being around students. Like, her anxiety was getting big. And I made the mistake one day of going to her counselor, and because we were talking about my daughter's health, and I asked the counselor, I said, has she ever talked to you about seeing dead people? And the phone went absolutely silent. And then she kind of fumbled her words, like, that is something we will probably need to get her onto some medication for.
Right.
And I said, no. I said, no, you won't. I said, this is a family trait. I said, I think maybe what you need to do is you need to go back to school because you obviously didn't learn enough the first time around getting your degree. I said, not everything is about drugs and giving kids drugs. That's the school answer. Ritalin. Okay?
Well, Ritalin, and what I take from that is if you're seeing spirits, it's a psychiatric issue. And that's where the drugs come in, too.
Well, exactly. Valium, Ritalin, whatever they are giving kids these days. Okay?
Right.
Okay?
And that's about 90% of the problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's just the easy way to get them to fall in line, basically.
Absolutely.
So that they fit in with everybody else. And let's not address whether it's a psychological problem or a paranormal problem. Let's not address it. Let's just medicate it away.
Well, and that's what society has become. Okay, no offense. I would sooner find out my daughter was smoking pot than doing half of these other medications that she's on because of her depression and anxiety.
Right.
That's just me. Maybe that's the Canadian in me. I don't know. Right? Because literally up here, pot is everywhere.
Here's what's sad, too, because I developed a criteria. Well, not really a criteria, but I've developed a list basically for parents of what to look for in their kids involving paranormal, being a paranormal team and group or whatnot. And I would love more than anything to take it to like school principals and teachers and whatnot. But if I do that, then one, I'm going to stigmatize my kids at the school. Well, kind of, because her kindergarten teacher actually thinks it's great and is into the paranormal. But at the same time, I don't want my kids to be labeled by other kids or even parents as, oh yeah, your dad's that crazy guy that looks for aliens and ghosts. So, and again, that's society.
Mm-hmm.
You know who I think I would take a list like that to is the parents of adult children now, the kids that grew up that way. I think I've mentioned before, my son had a imaginary friend at my parents' house when we would go to visit. And at first, I just kind of took it as, well, there's not a lot of kids around here to play with. He's bored with the weekend, so he developed an imaginary friend. And then we sort of noticed a pattern, and eventually, after a couple of years, we kind of figured out that it wasn't most likely an imaginary friend. It was actually my grandfather that he picked out in a picture, that's who he was seeing, and it was my grandfather that would play with him during the holiday season when we would go down, anywhere from October to January. While my parents were getting ready for the holidays and celebrating the holidays, we would go down there literally every weekend. And he was only playing with this person through those periods. And
Right.
when he saw a picture of my grandfather, he's like, "Oh, that's the man I play with in the basement." So I would go back to the adult parents, or the parents of older kids like that, because our views on it changed simply by what we experienced and what we saw.
Right, and the list is actually in the Forestman Library. And as far as when we do our booth for the fair, when we do our booth for Paracon, even we'll have that list for handouts. Oh, and I'd encourage your listeners with kids the same thing. When your kids start talking about their imaginary friend, what's he look like? And when they draw a picture, what's the picture of? And something I'm learning with Dante's videos is if your kids are drawing pictures and they have red eyes, ask them about it, because the red eyes are a key thing with some of the alien races I'm learning about. So these are just some things I'm learning and picking up as I go with the research I'm doing.
I got a question from Gail. This goes back to the whole flat earth topic. She says, the guests' ideas last night were nonsense to most of us, granted, but I have never seen an SOR guest grilled like a piece of fish before. Is it possible the intent of the night was to prove him wrong? And I'm going to tell you right now, Gail, no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. Maybe for Preacher, because Preacher's a scientist. Okay, but for me, I was trying to figure out what the big hubbub is about this. Why are so many people jumping on this bandwagon? And it just, we never got the answer.
I don't think it was an intentional grilling. I think part of it, too, was that he didn't have the answers. You had to really struggle to pull out any kind of answer out of him. So while some people could take it as grilling, if it's an interview and he's there to explain his point of view and make the argument for the flat earth, if he's not going to share his points and his arguments and his theories and ideas, then you have to push a little bit to get him to put those out there, because that's the whole point of the show.
The thing that bothered me about it more than anything was he wasn't answering the questions. In his mind, he was. Okay? In his mind, he
didn't have the right answer.
But for the rest of us who were looking for that deep answer, we never got it. We never got it.
No.
Now, I will give him credit for doing the 3 hours and doing it on a very divisive topic. I think you got to give him credit for that. But I think if this is going to be something he's going to do again or do at other places for other people, it's in his best interest to prepare himself a little bit better, and hopefully he came away from this understanding a little bit more of what a media appearance is going to be like, and he can make a better presentation the next time.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk about this for a second, because in a different sense, we had the exact same thing happen. Exact same thing happen when we had the ladies from the Edmonton Paranormal Society come on. And they were talking about the way TAPS does investigations. Okay? They could not answer the questions. And I think the frustration that came out of my mouth that night, or like last night between my mouth and Eric's mouth last night, was that we weren't getting answers to the questions. That is a problem to me. That is a problem to me. When you come on a talk show, answer the questions, because you're not just speaking to me, you're speaking to everybody in the audience. You're speaking to absolutely everyone. And when you don't have that happening, that becomes problematic. And that's where the guest, no matter how knowledgeable or not, loses credibility with those whom he or she is speaking to.
Well, I think that's part of the problem. When you treat these topics as genuine journalistic ideas and things that need to be talked about and taken seriously, and then you go and a lot of these, and I won't say every guest or even any guest, particular guest that you've gotten for the show, okay, a lot of these people are not fully trained or fully educated in what they're talking about, but yet they're going out there and putting themselves out to make media appearances, whether it be because they firmly believe they're the expert or whether it's because they think this is their 15 minutes. So they're not prepared. And I think hopefully over time, maybe shows like that, as painful as it was at times to listen to, maybe that will help educate all of these people in the idea that if I'm going to go out and I'm going to put myself out there and I'm going to state this case, I need to be prepared to state it.
Mm-hmm. Either way, what it does do is it shows that people are not prepared. Don't put yourself out to the media if you're not prepared. That's what it comes down to. That's what it absolutely comes down to. Everett, we got about 5 minutes here before we got to go to break, 4.5 minutes. I'd love to hear your first question of the night.
Okay. I had a chance to sit down and watch TV the other day, and it brought something to mind. We talk a lot about how everybody in the paranormal is just out for their 15 minutes, and they want their TV show, and they want their fame. But there's a lot of reality TV out there that is essentially just the same thing. People want their fame. Are we being unfair when we pick on our own field? We talk so much about how everybody in the field wants their fame, but is it just the field or is it society?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's up to the agenda of the paranormal team, and you find the right network or the right media that's going to cater to your agenda. I think that's where some of it comes from.
Shows or us or anybody repeatedly talks about how it's just this ego-driven fame, desire for fame in the paranormal community, when in reality, it's really society-wide.
I can see that.
It is.
But, I mean, you got to realize the idea of the media, okay? A lot of these shows that are on there, a lot of the networks are very, very copycat. Okay? So, for instance, if we have A&E, and when this whole Ghost Hunters battle started, it all started with A&E when they brought on Paranormal State. And the ratings came out, the first week they had like 11 to 14 million people viewing that show. It blew away even mainstream television. So what happens is, all of a sudden, networks like Discovery or History or Sci-Fi see this. Well, now they want to jump on the bandwagon. Well, if A&E is doing this, we need to do that. So Sci-Fi and all the other places came out with Ghost Hunters. Then Ghost Hunters International. And this is where the whole tectonic plate of reality television and the paranormal started to shift. And they all end up doing the copycat. And that's where we get to today, because all of a sudden we have 20 different shows on, say, 7 different networks doing the exact same thing. So that's where all of a sudden we get the stupidity factor coming in, because now everybody's trying to get an edge. Whether it's traveling far and wide to different places of the world to check out hauntings, whether it's killing Bigfoot now, whether it's demons in every underwear and sock drawer in your dresser, okay? They need some sort of angle to keep that market going, because the networks themselves have oversaturated what they are doing. So it's not the ghost hunters who are doing it. It's the networks who are killing the brand of television because we all hopped on the bandwagon. We all chewed it up. I mean, you think about it. Ghost hunting shows, when they first started, when there were fewer of them, were getting as high of ratings as Monday Night Football. Paranormal State and Monday Night Football were going head-to-head. And there were times when Paranormal State was winning. That's troublesome. We only got about 30 seconds here, guys. Anybody want to comment?
Well, I think it was winning because back then, ghost haunting shows, ghosts in general weren't as talked about. So everyone jumped on that bandwagon, or that viewing, to learn about what ghosts are. So they thought.
True enough. Very true.
Yeah.
Where's James?
And like you said, now you have 20 different shows, and it's getting oversaturated.
Absolutely. And it went to people's heads as well. Guys, I'm going to get you to hold on here. I'm going to get you to hold on. We're going to hop out for a break here momentarily. You're listening to the Paranormal Roundtable tonight on Spaced Out Radio. 1 hour already in the books. That was a quick hour. It's amazing. Everett Themer from the Encounter Online, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal, and the radio show S4, brought to you by Spaced Out Radio, are with us on the panel. Soon we will be joined by Uncle Jimbo, James Tyson, right here in the cabin. We'll be back right after this break.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
The third Monday of every month, Spaced Out Radio is going to bring you a different look at everything paranormal. Welcome to The Reporters. Jim Mallard, Vanessa Hogel, Denise Garcia, and Christina George join me, Dave Scott, for a look at the weird and strange from the other side of the microphone. We'll break down ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and the people investigating them. The paranormal media has never been heard like this. Come listen to The Reporters.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter Online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET Experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on Sunday, Uncle Jimbo James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin take over the cabin here, way up in the Great White North, for Spaced Out Weekend, starting Saturday and Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. So make sure you tune on in, because we are one of the only shows that does this thing 7 days a week. So you never have to miss out on your evening SOR fix. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We are also live on United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Polyfluous Boisterous. Polyfluous Boisterous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you can connect with us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to chat with me live during the show. You can also give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player FM, and Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also read up on all paranormal news you need at The Encounter Online. You can click on that, or if you head on over to patreon.com for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radios. We are joined on the panel by James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend, along with Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal and the radio show S4, as well as Everett Thiemer from The Encounter Online. Gentlemen, how are you?
Oh, doing good.
Thanks for having us.
Oh,
I am well.
I'm a little disappointed, James, that you trimmed 3 inches of your beard off.
Yeah, I can do that. It's my beard. I didn't trim the end of the beard. I trimmed it 3 inches that go from the skin to the beard.
But it'll be just as big come time for Paracon.
Okay.
Oh, it'll be down on my knees by then.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know,
just about
Dave,
tickles my fancy the way it is.
In full disclosure, I had a couple of meetings that were rather serious, so I have to admit that I trimmed mine too.
Oh, well, my God!
You guys are terrible, terrible.
All right, how's yours coming, Dave?
Oh, you know what? It's bushy. I got to trim it up here soon. I do.
Terrible.
It's the desk job. It's a desk job. You know, some of us have a desk job that we have to go to.
Yeah, but your desk job is out the middle of the caribou. And I don't mean the animal. I mean the trees and the bush and the loons and the poop and stuff.
Exactly.
And
you have to have a beard.
You shouldn't be selling those trucks to somebody unless they come in with a flannel shirt, a beard, and a chainsaw.
This is true. This is true.
I gotta admit, why do I have a beard? Because being in the Army for 20 years, I couldn't have one. And I guess I'm rebelling. That's what some people would say anyway.
Well, that's worth it. That's worth it. Let's continue on with the round table here, because we had some interesting discussion over this last month. And my next topic, earlier this week, we had David Weatherly on and Ross Allison. We were talking about haunted toys. And I love this topic because I think for a lot of people, they've had experiences where objects in their home seem to be haunted. So let's start with you, Eric, on this, because you're with Forest Moon Paranormal. What do you think causes a toy to be haunted? And have you ever been in the vicinity of one?
Okay, so I've told you on the show before. There's certain cases, there's certain experiences I've been through that I can't talk about because I didn't have validation for it. Now, I will bring one of those up because there is possibility with it. When I was in Germany, there was about a 4 foot tall doll that was in the basement of our German housing. And I came home from base one day, and that doll, which terrified my family, was in my house. And according to my ex, that doll walked up 2 flights of stairs and knocked on the door. Now, did that happen? I really don't know because I wasn't there. What I do know is that Chow Chow I've talked about before would do nothing but growl at that doll and want to tear it to pieces. So that brings maybe a little bit of validity to that story. Now, why do these things happen? I think it depends on the toy. I think it depends on the spirit that's in the toy. Older item or object was attached to the spirit. It is very plausible the spirit took over that toy. That's my take on it. Is it possible? Definitely. I mean, we've seen it on some of the famous haunted toys that, have been on your show, as a matter of fact. And you've had experiences with those toys during your show. With the spirits that were in those toys.
Yes, we have. Harold the Haunted Doll with Anthony Kenyatta. When I had whatever that cloaked figure was standing right beside me. That scared me. I'm not going to lie. That one scared me.
Now, the first thing I think of when I hear haunted toy is obviously the movie Chucky. Now, is that scenario plausible? Could somebody deliberately, before they die, occupy a toy? That's something to think about. It's a vessel, just like the human body is a vessel for the soul. It's plausible a toy, although an inanimate object until it's occupied, it could be a vessel very easily. Which you have paranormal cases where the client's home is completely quiet until they go to an antique store and get a dresser or a mirror or a jewelry box. And all of a sudden, they're having paranormal activity. So, you look at all those facts, and it's definitely plausible, hands down.
Well, if you look at Barry Strom, who's been a frequent guest on this show many a times, he has a haunted antique store in Pennsylvania. And he will tell you point blank that they have cameras going 24 hours a day on the store, and they will see objects move. They will see shadows in the store that don't set off the alarm. They will see things happen. So I do believe that objects can be haunted. But what do you think, James, is causing toys to be haunted?
This is just my opinion. I think the toy is it's actually not the toy that's haunted. It's the toy has an attachment. Like you've got Spirit A who really likes the toy, and when you come over to play with the toy, or when you come up to the toy, it wants to let you know that it's not yours. So it moves the toy. It does what it wants. Uses that to kind of scare you away, or to try to communicate with you, saying, "Look, I'm here, and I can move this because I'm comfortable moving this because I've had it all my existence." Whether the spirit exists small and within that item, I kind of think it doesn't. I think it's with the item. And like a wallet, we had a fellow attached to a wallet. He was only attached to the wallet because some kids were playing with the Ouija board and wanted to know who owned the wallet, and this spirit came through, and he couldn't leave the house because whatever made him come forward when they opened that door with the Ouija board, he came through, and he hung out within 50 feet of that wallet for 30-some years until we crossed him over.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's one of those. It's just an opinion. It's a you could find some kid who passed away but liked a jewelry box and would set it off all the time. Whether the entity, the energy itself, is within the jewelry box, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe then, Everett, that a lot of these entities that are attached to toys could be those of children who passed early and they're just wanting to keep near their favorite object when they were alive?
I think it's possible. I like James's idea that it's a spirit that's not within it. I had an instance where we had a toy that appeared to be haunted. It was an electronic toy, and it randomly spit out words that kind of made sense. And there would be no reason that there was any attachment to the toy. It was bought new, and nobody had died with it or played with it as a child except for one of my kids. So I would accept that it wasn't a haunted toy, but something had attached itself to it to communicate through it or was using it to communicate. But I can also see, especially some of these antique toys, where when a child only had one or two toys, those toys were very special to them. You know, kids today seem to have virtually everything. But 100 years ago, if a child had a toy or a truck, that was their childhood. That toy meant everything to their childhood. So I could see them wanting to stay with it if they passed as a child. And I do, like I said, I hadn't thought about it before, but I really like James's explanation.
Well, this brings to an interesting question from Gail. And James, we'll start with you on this one. What happens to the entity if the toy is destroyed? Does it get destroyed too?
No, you can't destroy energy. We got to remember that when we talk about entities or ghosts or spirits, we're actually talking about energy. And unless they move to and connect themselves to a greater source of energy, or what we call going to the light, that energy is going to be constant.
It almost seems like destroying the toy could make things worse.
I agree, because then you just release the spirit, and now it's stuck.
I know of a case where a woman had purchased something at a yard sale, and she had a lot of problems after buying it. And she decided that this was the thing, the object that was causing all of these problems. And I had I wanted to get the object and talk to her and interview her and have it examined. And instead, she threw it on a bonfire in her backyard. And her life just got worse after that.
Yeah. Because now you released it. Now it's kind of stuck here until someone comes and passes it over. Or removes it if it's a negative entity. Depends what it is.
It's like, hey, take your favorite toy, or take the favorite toy away from your son, Dave. Pull it out of his hands, throw it in the fire.
Right. Right.
And multiply that by 100, and it's not stopping. So
100.
1,000.
There you go.
Well, this gets to another question from #SpacedOutRadio on Twitter from Canadian Joe. He is saying then, panel, is it fair to say objects or toys that get possessed by malevolent entities and spirits only?
No, not malevolent only. It could be it could be played with, let's call it possessed by them, not. Well, let's not go occupied. And when I say possessed, I mean it belongs to. Just it belongs to a spirit, and they're protective of it. They play with it. It reminds them of home. It connects them with something. Everything else in their life is gone except this one item, whether it's an old chair, a bed, a music box, a jewelry box, a doll. It's just that one thing that reminds them of where they were. And they could be cranky when you move it. They have the same personality once they pass as they did when they were alive. So, some are cranky, some are not.
I think maybe they don't get as much notice, but there are many cases of a toy being played with or, like you said, possessed by somebody who's perfectly happy as a child they want to play with it, and they want to find somebody to play with them. And that's certainly, I wouldn't call that malevolent at all. I think maybe those cases don't get as much notice because maybe there isn't as much fear in them. There's not as much drama. There's not as much emergency in them. But I think to say that it's primarily or only malevolent would be it would be inaccurate.
Well, the main time anyone talks about a haunting, it's a malevolent, because that's what strikes terror. You just see toys moving on their own, it strikes more curiosity. Now, we had a case last year where the guy knew there was a spirit there, and he actually went out and bought toys because it was a child spirit. He bought toys and put them in a room and told the spirit, told this little boy, these are yours. Play with them. And that spirit did. He would walk in there, there'd be toys moved. He didn't have any kids. He knew he didn't move it. There's nobody else to move it. So is that an attachment? No, it's just a spirit playing with the toys. And no, you're absolutely right. I'd say only about, and this is just me throwing numbers out, I'd say about 20% of haunted toys are malevolent. You just hear about them because, again, you got the fear factor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move
and
on.
Even the ones
not all haunted toys are malevolent at all.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to a question from our audience here. This comes from Robert, and he is asking, what happens if a cursed toy gets put into a ley line? What do you think happens?
That's a good question. Ley lines are still, to me, kind of a mystery, and that's what we're exploring. I think if they're put into a ley line, you just released it to go wherever it wants to an extent. Because personally, I think portals open through ley lines. So you could either, depending on what happens, it could either open a portal and be gone to go somewhere else, or it could travel ley lines.
But what if it wants to stay with the toy?
Then it can. But I think he's talking about if it's destroyed. No, never mind. I'm looking at the question.
No. James, what do you think? Do ley lines affect haunted objects?
I don't know if they just increase the energy or the availability for any spirit or energy or vibration to tap into to increase that. Wow. I know that what's that little pub over in England that's at the intersection of two ley lines or something that's always been deemed incredibly haunted? It could be, I think the pub was from the 1600s, so my gosh, it's probably going to be haunted anyway, but you just have more activity because the energy is high enough for you to see, or the layperson, not having to be psychic or sensitive to see these things. I think the ley lines are, and this is my own personal opinion, because I don't know really that much about them. I think they're just energy lines. So until I can figure out what they really are, or maybe do some reading up on them, I'm not really sure what they would be doing. And I wouldn't say the item is cursed. That's a whole different thing. There's cursed items, and then there's occupied items or possessed by an energy item. So cursed is a whole other thing I'm not familiar with.
All right, let's get to a question from Gail here. She's saying, panel, are you saying those energies have more power than a living human?
Not me.
No.
Okay, then please compare the power of an entity to a human, if you wouldn't mind. Hold on, yes. My Oilers just won. My Edmonton Oilers just won. That's 2-0 on Anaheim now in the NHL playoffs. I know you don't care. Thank you, Eric, on hashtag Spaced Out Radio for keeping me updated. Much appreciated. Yes, we're going back. Yeah, hold on. Hold on, I'm just going to turn... You guys chat. I'm just going to turn my mic off and cheer here for a bit.
Yeah, my dog's going crazy, so the only two fans are Dave and my dog. Yeah.
So comparing the power of an entity to a human, no, humans have the authority over spirits, hands down, and that doesn't go with belief. I've got to say that religion does not dictate what kind of authority you have. You dictate what kind of authority you have. You take possession of your home, and that when we go to a case, for example, I do not sage a home unless I'm requested to. I encourage the homeowner to sage their own home because they take the power over their home into their own hands, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll teach them how to do it, but I want the client to cleanse their own home. If they want me to educate and supervise, by all means, I will. But you need to take possession and take control of your own home. Therefore, you have more power or energy than that spirit or energy does. What's your view, James?
I totally agree. We have a lot more. And if you think of it, if we get rid of the term energy and go with vibration, I know those people who are have drug addicted, alcoholic, they'll have a bad week. Their vibration will get very, very low. They can be affected by low vibration entities, an attachment. Somebody's trying to get off heroin, and something's attached to them that was a heroin addict before it passed, and it'll hold that guy into that addiction. That's just a low vibration effect. But all that low vibration human living person has to do is recharge, whether that's a little bit, meditation, get around some moving water, whatever it is in their life that charges them up, and it'll help clear that out. Or you get somebody to help rake that energy off of them, that lower energy off them. But they will, if they're strong. And we'll call it a ghost. If a ghost is strong and knows and knows how to kind of draw energy, it could appear like we think a devil looks like, and that'll scare the bejiggers out of you. And you think that thing is going to get you, but all you have to do is stand up to it, and push it out. It'll go.
Oh, I've got to interject here real quick too, because Trippin's reminding us. Don't forget salting. I completely agree. And with salting, I've got to say what most of my clients forget to do is to salt the drains. And because, you can salt, and what I encourage people to do is if they have a carpet, you lay out salt on the carpet, and you vacuum it up because the energy's there. But don't forget your drains. Don't forget to wash your mirrors. Mirrors are important. Along with the sage. And I actually have a client here that's actually using red brick dust as well, which is highly powerful.
Eric, why the mirrors?
Because the mirrors are go-aways. Especially when you have two mirrors facing each other, it opens the door. Opens the channel.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't understand that.
Your initial comment brought something to mind about, Dave has talked about the situations with taps and how they don't feel any responsibility to help a client cleanse a house or anything. And I can, to an extent, understand that because there are so many different belief systems that people share or that people have that maybe it would be hard to pinpoint something for one particular belief system. Is it ever the responsibility, or should it become the responsibility of these teams, if they're not going to help people cleanse their houses, at least inform them of the option and that they have the power to do it and that's something that they should consider doing?
Here's my problem and experience. Is these teams will go in, and you're absolutely right. It's up to the belief system of the client. That's what we look at when we go in. But a lot of these teams will go in, get their nice little EVP in picture, not give them advice or to help them or refer them to get help. They'll just walk out. Now, is it the responsibility of them? It depends on what the motive and the intent of your team is. If you're only there because you want that EVP in picture, then yeah, okay, it's not your problem. But it's also, what is your intent with your team? But my problem is these teams will go in, get their nice little EVP in picture, not do a darn thing to help the client as far as figuring out what it is and how to remove it. And they won't say, go see your reverend, go see your shaman, go see your clergy, or call in another team that actually does this. They just walk out.
Yeah. But that's about it. Shouldn't it become the responsibility of these ghost hunting teams to at least inform people of their intent when they come in? Because a lot of clients may call out of fear thinking these people are going to come in and solve the problem, when in reality, that's just their thought, and it's never really been stated one way or the other what they're going to do. They just know this team is coming in and they're going to investigate and they're going to tell us what's going on, and they assume that they're going to help. Shouldn't it at some point become almost standard procedure of the ghost hunting team to inform them of what they're going to do before they do anything, and let them know whether they're just going to collect data and leave or guide them in the right direction to solve the problem?
Well, I agree 100%, and most of them don't.
Yeah, I agree too.
And that's where your code of conduct.
James,
yes, sir.
You used to be a part of a TAPS family team.
Yes.
And I don't know if you heard our show on Ghosts of the Great White North with Mike Morin, who is part of your team with Canadian Paranormal Investigations.
I hate that guy. Oh, no, hold on.
No, we like him.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But
he's on with me tomorrow.
But the question,
Peter, yeah.
But the question that I'm trying to get at here is, I never knew, up until we did that show with the Edmonton Paranormal Society, that TAPS has so many rules and regulations as to what they do with evidence, which is pretty much nothing, that they have no intent of cleansing, they have no intent of doing anything but confirmation or denial that a place is haunted. And maybe this is why they continue to go into haunted places that they already know are speculatively haunted. But I found that very disappointing, because in my opinion, when I asked them, how are you helping the client, they had no answer.
Yeah, you heard crickets at that point. It is very, very to be on one of those teams and watch the TAPS Nazis kind of work, the head guys work. It's frustrating because they not only don't want anybody to talk to the client, they don't want. They say all information belongs to the client, except they never showed the client the information. It was ridiculous. They would tell the client, we need to come back again. And they'd invite more people back. And look, we can get all these EVPs. Oh, yeah, this is that. But what we'll do is when we finally play them to the client, which I never, ever saw them do, they would say, this is what we got. We're not going to tell you what it is. You make a decision. And then we're going to leave this silver bullet behind and out the door. It's the most ridiculous group of yahoos I've ever been around. We did run into a guy with our own team who was about to get fired for lying, but ended up resigning. That's a whole other issue. But again, it was not getting back to clients, but telling us all he got back to clients. The client is number one. TAPS won't allow the client to be a part of the investigation. TAPS.
That's so wrong.
It's silly. It's absolutely silly.
What's their reasoning?
Oh, they don't have to tell us. You know, the head guy will say they're not allowed in. Why? Well, because that's the rules.
Really? Yeah, to me, the client needs to be involved. That gets them, and like I said earlier, that gives them control over their home.
And also, at the end of the day, if they find something, it gives them closure. You can't do all the work for somebody and then tell them something, because I could be pulling your leg to clean up what I was about to say. But
here's my problem. It doesn't give them closure, because now you've terrified the client even more, because now you've validated their concerns, and now you're walking out going, "Have a nice life."
Yeah,
there's no closure there whatsoever.
Probably stirred the thing up too. You get these guys poking at it and antagonizing it, and you get all Zach Bagans on the thing, and then high five and out the door. The people come home, try to go to sleep, and stuff's bouncing off the walls.
And I've said it on the show before, but about 90% of my clients are darn near in tears when I finally get a phone call, because they've already had 2 or 3 teams. They've already had a reverend. They've already had a clergy. They've already had, multiple, and they've been dealing with this for a year or 2. And that's when I get a phone call, because we're not out there like we probably should be. I send out promotions once a week to pagan groups and paranormal groups, not to promote my team per se, but so it's out there for clients, because we actually get paranormal teams that actually do contact us. Hey, we've got this, and we don't know what to do with it. And kudos to them for admitting that they can't handle something. Those are the teams I will, talk to and work with. But the ones that go in and high five as they're walking out the door because they got a cool picture and an EVP, and find somebody else to remove it because we don't know what to do, because that's not our job. That's the wrong answer.
Yeah, the only time... go ahead. Sorry.
To me, the idea of excluding the client from the investigation almost, I don't want to say invalidates the whole thing, but it just seems like it opens up a whole door to, we found, especially if they're not showing them all the evidence, we found this, we found that, we're not going to show you, you didn't get to be there, goodbye. I don't see the point of that.
Yeah, it's silly. It also opens you up to, hey, where did my jewelry go?
Right.
I've given you control of the house, and heck, I used to, when I did a search warrant on a house, we'd videotape it before we started searching. So, and then videotape the whole house after we finished. So, and it did happen. Somebody called up saying, "Hey, where's my 54-inch TV?" And we said, "Yeah, you didn't have one." Now, that's the government with deep pockets. Imagine you and your ghost hunters show up with $50 worth of equipment and kick the owners of the house out, and they tell you that when you leave. Yeah, you're screwed. Keep them there. Keep them involved. Let them see what you're doing, for goodness sakes. It's you want them to be able to almost do this themselves. Mm-hmm. But we will. Just one more thing. We will not, when it comes to cleaning or clearing a house, we will always do it for free. And if someone says, "Well, can you refer me to somebody?" I honestly won't do that, because it's almost not ethical, because I don't want them thinking, "Yeah, I found a ghost, and if you call my cousin for $500, he'll get rid of it." Mm-hmm. I'll show you how to do it, or I'll do it for free, or we'll have somebody do it, or just say, "You'll have to look it up yourself."
Gail has an interesting question. She is asking, do you, who are involved in the paranormal services, keep records of your successes and failures, or just your successes?
We keep records on everything. And, as far as failures, we do have cases that are ongoing and will always be ongoing. We have cases where, due to the nature of the property, there's actually one case in particular that is next to a fault line. That's energy right there. It's between two streams, which is its own energy area, and it's on Native American land, prior Native American land. And we've informed the client, if you get, we'll always come back. We'll check the property once a month astrally. That's not a problem. And, you know, I hear from them occasionally. We have an open phone line to all of our clients at all times. And we never close a case. A case to me is always open. There's always things that can come back. Again, charging, if I'm paying for a service, I expect it to be a complete service and resolved. With the paranormal, it's never going to be resolved because you can always have things come back, whether it's tomorrow or a year from now. So why am I going to pay for a service that's not always going to be resolved? That's unethical to me. And on the crisis side of it, why am I going to take advantage of a client that's going through a crisis? You're taking advantage of. So failures and successes, yeah, to me, a case is a case, whether it's a failure or a success. We always have case files.
Yeah, I don't think a case you've gone to and didn't get anything is a failure. It's just part of the it's the investigation come up that way. A win or a fail, I think they're all good. Did we make the client feel comfortable when we left? That's the key.
That's the ultimate goal, is to make the client happy, make the client feel safe.
You know, it's funny. We talk about EVPs and photographs and stuff. I always say, how many photos of a ghost do you need to prove when ghosts are real? All you need is one. You just need people to believe it. Eric and I, and anybody who's been doing this more than 2 or 3 years, has photos and has electronic voice phenomena from a disembodied person. So it's not like we have to keep getting these for our collection every week. Because it's old hat now. We know how to do it. We've done it. We're now just concentrating more on helping the client. It's the ghost hunter that shows up all excited to talk to a ghost. And you just have to slap those guys.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that will continue on in what is right and what is wrong about investigations. Everett, you got a question for the panel?
Well, this one kind of leads right in from what we were talking about. We've spent a lot of time talking about what do we do with the evidence. And, you know, this TAPS case or this TAPS group really brought it to the forefront again. Somebody tell me what the acceptable thing for us to do with the evidence is. Because a lot of these groups, as much as we can criticize them, they're doing the best they can. They're collecting evidence. They're putting it on their website. I honestly don't know what more they're supposed to do. So what should we, as a paranormal community, expect to be done with the evidence?
Eric, you want to go on that one first?
Well, I would say share it, but then you violate client confidentiality. We maintain it. We share it with the client, obviously, but you know, that's where we're different, because we're not after the picture of the EVP. We actually don't look for that. 80% of our caseload is astral, and that goes into a question from Joyce as far as can a house be cleared from a remote location? We do it all the time. For the listeners that don't know about Forest Moon, we have an astral team. So 80% of our caseload is actually done from the astral, which is why we are a global group and a global team. So do we get EVPs and pictures from the astral? No, we don't. How do I have proof that it's been done? A happy client. A client that knows now there is no spirit. There is no entity. And ghosts do not have to be passed over. And that's another thing we do is mediate, because from the astral you can actually communicate much better with a spirit or entity versus an EVP. because they're actually manipulating electronics to talk to you through an EVP. So being from the astral, they actually directly communicate with them. And so coming from the mediation point of view, most spirits actually, well, I won't say most, but a lot of spirits don't know they've passed on. So, and I always use the movie The Others as an example of that, is the spirits don't know they passed on. You're the intruder, not them. So it's a matter of mediating and letting them know you've died. You're not in the living realm anymore, and you're scaring the dog and the kids. And do they have to move on? If the client doesn't want them to, then no. It's completely up to the client.
Yeah, it's. Go ahead, Eric. Everett.
Well, what I was going to say is, but how does that and the evidence? It goes back to what do we do with the evidence?
What I do if we're in a transition with my paranormal group, a transition. Sorry. But what we would do with audio evidence, which is 99% of the evidence, every so often you get a photograph. But what we would do, we would present that to the client because it's theirs. And we would kind of help them go through it and see what it is. That's after the first investigation. Then the next question would be, we've got disembodied voices. They're communicating with us, though they may have said some nasty things or told us to leave. Now, what's the next step? We would say, they are here. What would you like us to do? And most of them will say, well, we'd like them to leave, please. And then we get into the cleaning side. But the evidence itself stays with the client. If we put some on our website, the client agrees that that's, as long as they don't tell people our names or addresses, there's nothing identifiable on there, so fill your boots. But I'm in transition. I shouldn't say I'm in. We're in transition. And what we've done, we've partnered with Skeeter Wellhouse from Forest Moon, who has done a couple of remote viewings for us before we go in. Now, imagine your favorite Ghost Adventure TV show. I shouldn't have said Ghost Adventures, but your Ghost TV show where they go in and for the first 45 minutes are asking what the guy's name is and trying to get pictures all over the place. Well, imagine going in the first investigation, knowing what the guys' names are, knowing where they are, and knowing why they're there. So that cuts your first hour worth of banter, or actually that first chunk of, here's all the evidence we got. Yes, you do have an entity here. Now we're going to clean it. We know that before we go in now. In fact, Skeeter Wellhouse did one here, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow night. She went before we did the investigation and actually crossed the cranky one over. And that was proven or, confirmed by the family, who says that guy doesn't stand over our bed or our children's bed anymore. It's gone. Like, this is all clear. We don't feel him. We don't hear the noises. So we went in, and now we're just dealing with two other ones that are kind of hanging out. But the real nasty one crossed over. Absolutely fantastic.
And it makes your team safer.
Oh, yeah.
First and foremost, the client's safety is important, hands down. But the safety of your team, you can't help other people if your team isn't safe. So having an astral team that goes in before we go in, that's safe, hands down. Because you remove the malevolent entities before we even walk into the house or the property. And then we just do the education portion of it, do the wrap-up portion of it, and we're back home. Actually not back home, because when we have an after-action review with the team as far as what could we have done better, what went well, what went wrong, yada yada. So yeah, the format, and not toot my own horn by any means, but no, it's the best format overall. Utilizing astral in conjunction with the physical.
And what was very, very cool about this, through astral, an astral viewing, a remote view of the clients, and I've done this to a number of locations, testing out Skeeter and this whole astral or remote viewing thing, because it's completely new to me. We actually get the names. The one we did not too long ago, a made man, mafiosa, was murdered by his own crew in 1940s. His body was found in the mid-70s gave us a specific location, found by a guy and his dog out for a walk, and he's in a pauper's grave, and we have his first name. That doesn't seem like much, but that was enough for me to get to our coroner service, and they're investigating, trying to ID the John Doe and identify his pauper's grave for us.
Good.
The fellow that she moved out of that residence, we know he died in a prison. We know the prison's name. We know he died in 1941. He was doing time for manslaughter in a stabbing during Prohibition, and we know he's from Drummondville, Quebec, and we have his first and middle name. So that's amazing for us.
Yeah, and that right there is the definition of closure.
But circling back around, what can teams like yours do with that evidence to make the field be taken more seriously, to show the public that there is evidence? What can paranormal teams do?
I'm going to be honest with you, Everett. Teams like ours and what James is pursuing now is so small when it comes to the grander scheme of things. I don't even worry about it. I mean, and that might be bad to say, but my focus isn't to broaden the paranormal field. It's to help the client. And so what can I do with evidence? I honestly can't answer that, because until society accepts, and that's not going to happen for a very long time, that there's things in the paranormal outside paranormal TV, that's going to be a hard one to show.
Yeah, it's, when Eric's team starts getting all the calls in the Pacific Northwest, up in Washington State, Oregon, and other teams, I went to the Ghost Conference down in Oregon. There was a number of teams set up, and they had all the gear set up at their table, and we go out. We all have these great T-shirts, and we go do this. A lot of the stuff they do is basically the public things that anyone could go do, the forts and the museums and old fishing docks and things like that. Very seldom they're going to people's houses unless they know who the people are. When you break down, you start breaking down how many cold calls you get where people are, like Eric was saying, are already in tears by the time they call. Those are few and far between for those kind of paranormal groups. And those kind of groups will go to them, and then they'll end up calling another group anyway. So, because they're not helping. Eventually, Eric's team, a team who actually does something, will get the calls. We don't really care too much. I shouldn't talk for the entire team, but I don't care if not everybody's calling us right now, because I know there's a team here is fantastic, and they'll go out to every public event, and they'll have these great going to theaters and dam sites and all these great haunted locations and invite the public with them. That's what they do. We do something different. We're probably the scourge of a paranormal team, because we'll go into a location and clean it all out so no one else can go.
Just no cleaning out my museum, my friend. No cleaning out my museum.
I was just about to say that's when you get the paranormal tourists mad because now they have nothing to talk about.
Hey, Eric, let's go to Waverly down in Kentucky and clean it.
Quick question. Quick question coming in. Bill Cardwell is asking: after a spirit is crossed over, is there any chance they could or would come back? We got about 2.5 minutes left.
Yeah,
yes,
definitely.
they can come back, but that's completely up to them. They have the option. They're not stuck. Before they cross over, they're stuck. Once you cross them over, it's up to them if they want to come back. And usually the ones that do come back are family members that want to check on their family.
And when they come back, they're not going to be cranky when they come back, because what happens is after they go to school, let's call it on the other side, when they come back, they have no judgment. They do not judge you. Therefore, without judgment, there's no disappointment, no concern. It's all what the expression is, love and light. So
now to clarify though, we're talking earthly earthly spirits. Now, when you talk about the non-human malevolent entities, which I know is going to come up, that's probably the next question that's going to come up. There's a question in there too. What do we deal with the nasty entities? Okay, so when the astral team goes in and finds a nasty entity, they have spirit guides that work with them. Their spirit guides handle the nasties, and they are forced out. And there's an argument out there with paranormal teams. You can't force things out. Yeah, you can. We do it all the time. You can force a spirit over. We do it all the time. You can force a nasty, a malevolent entity out. We do it all the time. Most of our team, which, you cursed me, James. We already have 4 to 5 cases a day a lot of the times, and I'm down 2 astral travelers. So I don't want all the paranormal cases coming to us. No, not now.
Too late.
I know. But
gentlemen, on that note, I'm going to take control back here. We're going to hop out for a break at the top of the hour. 2 hours down, 1 hour to go on the SOR Paranormal Roundtable. It happens the final Friday of every month. Hard to believe we're wrapping up April already. We appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to tune in on the weekend where James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin will be here for Spaced Out Weekend, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. 1 hour to go. We're on Spaced Out Radio before we call it the night, and I pack up my bags, head into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi. We'll be right back.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines. Your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend, I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, How can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit. And expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio. and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to pray to anymore.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us for the final Friday of April already. Tomorrow night and Sunday, Uncle Jimbo James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin are back in the cabin while I make my way into the wilderness to find my Zen and my Chi. But don't worry, we are here 7 days a week as they bring you Spaced Out Weekend, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We're also live in New Orleans on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio, KTLK, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Polyflois Boisterous. Polyflows Boisterous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets it each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with this show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download our shows from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player FM, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also read up on the Encounter online, our brand new news section, brought to you by Everett Thiemer and Eric Markham. And head over to Patreon.com. For as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR. We welcome in the panel again for the final hour of the Roundtable tonight. James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend, Everett Thiemer from the Encounter Online, and from S4 and Forest Moon Paranormal, Eric Cooper. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Oh,
great
to be back.
Yeah. Let's get to some audience questions right off the bat right now. Joe is asking, have any of you ever watched the show Supernatural just for fun?
Love Supernatural. That's one of my favorites. Along with X-Files. Absolutely.
My friend is a stunt driver on it, but that's about it.
I have seen no episodes of it.
The first 2, maybe 3 seasons were the best, and they started, everyone got turned into demons and crap. I stopped watching after the 3rd season.
I've never seen it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's
good show.
One of those filmed in Vancouver things. So it's I got a bunch of friends who've been on it, but it's I don't know. I'm not interested in stuff like that. If it was nonfiction, maybe. The only fiction television I watch is, I don't know, it's Preacher, The Walking Dead. Oh, and then that one with Sleepy Hollow. I'll watch that because it's kind of cool.
You know why Joe likes it? Because I believe they have a couple episodes where they use pointy sticks.
Oh, pointy sticks.
You can't beat a good pointy stick.
Yeah.
No, you can't. No, you can't. All right, let's move on to the next question. This gets back to what was said in the last hour. This comes from Deb at hashtag SpaceOutRadio. Panel, don't you feel that your evidence would help others? And a client can sign consent forms to share evidence.
They can, and they will.
Yeah.
But
help others.
It goes back.
Sorry, go ahead.
It goes back to your comment, James, where you have one picture. That's all the evidence you need. And I know darn well all these other teams and groups probably have that one picture, that one EVP. So what evidence can we give them that they don't already have.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to be the new evidence? Because I look at a picture today and I go, there's another ghost picture. I look at a ghost video and I go, there's another one of those. What's going to be the next evidence that really gets brought to the forefront?
The picture of the veil, the picture of that spirit actually passing over.
Yeah.
The white light. That would be the next evidence.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to another question here. Shar is asking, how do you get nasty spirits to cross over? James?
Nasty being just and we'll call them just human spirits that are just cranky pants. You just get them to go. We had one that wasn't nasty, didn't like me. And he didn't want to cross, and my daughter and I crossed him. It's, you just keep telling them it's your time. And we use everything from assistance to my spirit guides and my daughter's spirit guides to moving up the food chain into the angel realm or the archangel realm, depending on your belief system. And it comes down to it's focusing on putting a light through. Like what we did is we just imagined a light. We had a candle on the floor and imagined a white light coming down from the universe onto that candle, and it was a big, bright white light. And we got confirmation by two different psychics that our fellow walked with his head down, kind of pissed off, but he walked into it and off he went where he was supposed to go. Now, there's other ones that literally we just move out of the house and send on the street, but eventually they could come back. I would rather what Skeeter did with her guy is a long story, and we'll tell you tomorrow night. But Eric, how do you push the malevolent ones out?
His phone cut out. We gotta make that happen. What's a panel without Cooper's phone cutting out? Honestly,
it's not.
No, it's not.
His phone is fine. It's a giant.
I have a little bit of a question.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
They, in an exorcist, whether you see it on TV fictionalized or people show videos of what they've done as an exorcist, it is always so violent and dramatic. When you try and cleanse a house of a malevolent spirit, does it ever get to that same level of dramatics or of violence or that same excitement level or anger level throughout the house versus when it's in somebody?
Not that I'm aware of. Dave, are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm just listening.
Okay. It sounds like a very large train coming down the track.
I thought you were going through a tunnel.
That's
the cabin furnace here.
Oh, okay. I've never had an experience. I've had an experience. Mike Morn and I had an experience in a house where the entity had actually caused the young fellow who was, a teenager growing up in the home, and the bedroom that this teenager had was a real nasty spot, and the kid ended up in psychiatric care. And this thing would just laugh at us saying, "Oh, you think you're going to move me out?" But again, we were connected to that stupid TAPS group where we weren't allowed to do anything other than hide all the EVPs on the client. But it told me to F off and get out, and it was a cranky thing. But we never did have a chance to move it on, which really ticked me off because I really wanted to go at that thing with some locals here who are good at that. And they specialize in the cranky ones. But I've never had that opportunity. The crankiest one that I ran into was the one that Skeeter moved across, and he was only cranky because he was a murderer, and spent the last part of his life in prison. But honestly, he was just a normal guy. And when he had the option to go, he went. And his cellmate actually came through behind Skeeter and said it was okay. And that's when he went.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. And we actually have his cellmate's name. So that was good.
Another question from the audience here. This one coming from Dennis, a fellow Edmonton Oilers fan. And yes, I'm fist pumping as I say that, Dennis. We won tonight.
Two of you, huh?
Exactly. That's all right, though. He's saying, panel, what do you think of all these paranormal groups on social media that keep posting from tabloids? He says, I managed to get maybe 1 in 50 posts that is interesting from these groups. Is social media a big issue, do you think, for the paranormal groups?
I don't think social media is the issue. I think it's the paranormal groups that are the issue. And you see a lot of them, and they're showing their true colors and their true intentions when they're posting tabloids that are fake. And
fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, and we have rules in Forest Moon that there is nothing from tabloid sources, which is another reason. Recently, I had to set the rules to posts that had to be approved before going into the group, because that way, if it's a tabloid news source, it's not going to get approved. But yeah, I think that's the group's intention or the team's intention, and they show their true colors by posting tabloids.
What I would like to see is these groups that are posting these tabloids take the time to write something to rebuke or look at the other side of the story. The only reason they're posting these stories is because it strikes fear in the people that go to their page or their website, and they feed off that. Why don't they look at these stories and go, look at this ridiculousness. This isn't the way it is. Here's what our experience has been.
Well, I comment. If I know a story is BS, I do comment on them. For example, and I brought it up before, the Afghanistan soldiers that supposedly found alien artifacts in a cave. That didn't happen. I know that for facts to verify that for one mountain, which was a patch that those particular soldiers were wearing, were never in Afghanistan. So when I see them, I do comment. As far as why all these groups and teams comment and rebuke, well, again, that goes to their intention.
We used to, on that other paranormal group that I belong to, post pictures of stuff that we found. And we were on a public Facebook page, and it got to the point where we just had the thing down, because everything that we posted was someone would, not an orb, it's a bug, or it's dust, or, if anything with a red circle around it isn't real. Here's a picture of a ghost. No, it's not, because I don't trust you. And to the point where, why are we even sharing this? People on social media, you got to remember, anybody can get on a computer. You don't need an education, and you don't need to be that bright, or you can be a bully. You're just anonymous somewhere, and you can be a real ass. So why even set yourself up for that kind of grief? It's just stupid. And, bringing, and I do that too. I will pull something off of a tabloid and make a very sarcastic little comment on it just to see even get a conversation going. But
right.
I very seldom will take something, unless it's from one of my friends' websites, one of the psychics or something. I'll promote them, but man, I'm not going to pull something off of Eric. What the heck is that? There's a news feed. I can't remember, because we won't even allow it.
Before it's news.
Yeah, before news, because it is insane and comes with every bit of virus that you could probably get. You need a
right. That's one of
social
my
media condom.
That's one of my banned news sites.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff.
There's a lot of crap on social media, and, we talked just the other night about this with John St. Augustine. See, Everett, I can get his name right.
I knew you would.
Yes, John St. Augustine, regarding all of this. And basically, he believes it's a huge reason why people are no longer trusting any sort of media, whether it's mainstream, whether it's fringe media, or alternative. But let's move on here. James, you have to ask your first question of the night for the panel.
Oh, cool. So what I'm going to do is I will go over here and find it, because I wrote them down earlier this same evening, posted them in some kind of feed that we had. And why I'm talking like this is I'm looking it up right now. Okay, just talk amongst yourselves. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, here we go. If a solar storm like the one in 1859 known as the Carrington event hit next week, are we ready for the aftermath?
Not at all.
Oh, that was easy. Okay, Dave, your question.
I don't think we are.
No, I think we're going to get our butts kicked.
Not at all, because that's going to knock out every power grid on the planet. Now,
in some ways,
ready?
I think we're less prepared because we rely so much more on these things that they didn't have back then.
Yeah, they only had teletype or whatever.
That's why the barter system is important. That's why gardening is important. That's why, being prepared, it's not fear-mongering. It's simple preparation. You can live in an apartment and have a garden on your patio. And I think that's probably one reason many cities went to, you can have a certain number of chickens, so long as they're not roosters, in your backyard. So you can have your own eggs. You see more and more of that. Is something happening if the government's preparing or the cities are preparing their people? Maybe. I've got my own chickens. I got my own eggs. I've got 7 acres. I have my own garden, my own orchard.
And a big-ass guard sheep.
I was just going to say that. And the big-ass guard sheep.
Exactly. And a duck.
And a duck.
Why a duck? And when you come up here for Paracon, we'll have 2 turkeys, because we actually have 6 chicks sitting here in the house under a heat lamp. 2 turkeys and...
Very nice.
Yeah, 2 turkeys, and because we're missing some chickens.
I was at a friend's house the other day, and she had beehives in her backyard. The city she lives in allows 2 beehives.
That's cool.
And probably the neighbor could have a couple of chickens that would get stung and taken away by their bees. But yeah, basically back in the day, or 1859 or whenever that was, they only had the teletype. Whatever it was called, the dots and dashes thing going, and that got fried and had to be replaced. Nowadays, everything is going to go for a loop.
Everything's digital. Everything's internet. And it's amazing, you go to a store and how many of these kids that are working in stores don't know how to add math by them without calculator. They go to give you change. They rely on that number on the calculator, on the cash register.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the electronics have dumbed us down a lot, and it's amazing. We'll actually be looking each other in the eye after this, because they won't be looking at a device; they'll be walking around. I find that if you start digging into what is electrical and how it all intertwines with our daily life, from the GPS systems, the satellites will be gone. They'll be some of the first things knocked out of space. And we missed this. I think NASA, was it 2012 or 2014, finally came out and said, 2 years ago, we dodged one of these things because it shot past where, if we weren't exactly in the orbit we were in, we kind of dropped a little bit that time of year. It shot right over top of us. And that's how close we came to a complete global shutdown. But they disclosed it 2 years later.
Well,
I guess not to
the
panic.
beautiful part about it is, a lot of people say that radio is dead or a dying breed, and in some ways I agree with that. But the beautiful part about radio is, even in a solar storm, you can still broadcast as long as you can get power, one way or another, with a generator. With a
but
generator.
How many people have generators?
Well, I can tell you this: I know every radio station in the Lower Mainland does. Okay.
Yeah, but it depends what they're run on. How long are you going to have fuel?
Right.
That is the big dependent, right? That is the big dependent.
Here's the thing. You might have a generator, but how many people in common society have a generator to power the radio to listen?
Well,
remember in 2001, or when the big millennium thing was going to happen, and generators were selling out of.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
The Y2K bug.
Yeah, like I think every generator you could find was sold. We get a bit nuts. I think my father-in-law bought a generator too, and he still has it in the box, just in case.
No, and that's why I push wind-up flashlights. Red Cross sells wind-up radios. Things like that. These are things I push when I do a survival class, which we have one coming up, actually.
How often do you have them?
No, not often. We're actually doing a survival class for Forest Moon Paranormal's training.
Cool.
Which I get asked, why is a paranormal team having wilderness survival and first aid? Well, because we're in the mountains, and since we cover all aspects of the paranormal, which covers UFOs and Bigfoot, how many Bigfoot researchers do you know how to survive in the woods? You look on TV and they have khaki shorts and a camera crew, maybe a bottle of water, but how many of them are prepared? Zero.
Or they're all dressed in camo, which is easy to find if you get lost.
Right.
Dummies.
So, yeah, we're doing wilderness survival. So every second Saturday of the month we have our training. So
good stuff. Well, that was my question.
Everett, let's get to your question.
Okay. The other day when we were talking to John St. Augustine, he had said that basically in this day and age, the media and media outlets are more intent on just keeping their audience and catering to their audience. And I agree with that to a point, but I think that there has to be a way that new and legitimate media sources, whether they be paranormal or, covering anything, can break that barrier and draw an audience from those media sources. What do you guys think a new media source has to do to kind of break that barrier?
I'll jump on this one.
I knew you would.
Well, yeah. I mean, what the hell? I was when I was at Vancouver's all news station in 2001 to 2007. When I first started, our news director was very, very old school news. He was very much about getting the news out, getting stories out, keeping up politically. We had a political reporter. We had reporters who covered emergency, the cop beat, absolutely everything. And then about 4 to 6 months after I started there, he was relieved of his duties, and another guy came in. And this guy, I've never seen a guy who loved to fire people more than this guy. And I'm thankful that I survived it. But the one thing that I would say about this guy is he brought in a new word that at that point in mid to late 2001, I'd never heard before. He said, we are no longer a news station. We provide infotainment. And the worst part about it was every type of poll that came out, and the one thing about the media, they do a lot of research polls. We hear of Gallup polls, we hear of all sorts of polls. The media is all over polls. And the one thing people were saying was, we're tired of feeling down about the news, murders, break and enters, hostage takings, war, everything. We're sick of it. So what they started doing is, that's when all of a sudden we started seeing more and more O.J. Simpson type of news reporting. You know, when Britney went nuts and shaved her head, that was months worth of stories. You know, we complain about the Kardashians today. That's a type of stories that people, believe it or not, even though we don't like it, there's a lot of people out there who are watching, who are glued to this stuff. And the media and the corporations, because they're no longer being run, radio stations and television stations are no longer being run by real radio people. They're being run by lawyers. They're being run by accountants. And so what happened was, they learned that you could get away with firing all of your veteran staff and replacing them with greenhorns right out of school, right out of broadcasting school, for half or less the wage, and the numbers wouldn't drop. Because they found out it wasn't about the news. It wasn't about the sports and the local teams. It was about infotainment. So if you want to get back to where journalism is, the first thing you have to do is you have to be able to bring in real radio people who understand that the advertising budget is bonus to the product. Now, I don't know how you do that, because up here in Canada, we have a thing called the CRTC, the Canadian Television Radio Committee, or Commission, pardon me, that charges huge dollars for a radio signal. Huge dollars, like in the millions. And for you to grab one of those signals, you need deep pockets. You need that advertising revenue to kick in. That's why we see so much more online. That's why we see a lot of Canadian radio stations after 6, 7 o'clock, they go to syndicated American programming because it's cheaper than hiring themselves, and they don't care. The CRTC only has a rule where between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. you have to play Canadian content for your broadcasting. So if you want to get back on track, you have to get the accountants and the lawyers and the business people out of radio, replace them with people who are passionate about their job and passionate about creating a good product with good quality news, good quality talk, whether it's a music format, whatever it is. And that is the start of it, Everett.
But don't you think, one of the things that John had said was that it's easier to develop an audience and cater to them. And to me, that opens up the door of, I'm going to report this part of the story and highlight this part of the story and ignore the rest. And that's not journalism. And I think
that's one-sided.
Any outlet that tries to walk down the middle of the road is going to face some challenges, and there has to be a way to meet those challenges, to pull the people back to actually hearing a story that is based on fact and reporting versus hearing one side of the story skewed to their particular point of view.
I understand with what you're saying. I understand that they are going to cater to the masses. See, down there, down in the United States, radio and television stations are skewed to public opinion, whether they are Republican, whether they are Democratic. It is skewed to the political side. Up here, it's not like that. Now, some may argue that it is because they are maybe very blatant in their political analogy, but I think for the most part, Canadian media still stays down the middle, which is hard for me to understand when I look at radio stations down there or television stations down there. I don't get how they could be politically affiliated. Journalism, I mean, that goes against everything that journalism is supposed to stand for. And yet it's the norm. And I don't understand that. But it's brought money. For instance, a Republican is not going to watch CNN. They will watch Fox. And vice versa for a Democrat. And when they are forming opinion, the unfortunate part about it is because they have taken people and divided them politically through the media, they're able to capitalize on the dollar in order to keep their product up. So the only thing that CNBC has to do or Fox has to do is bring on Tucker Carlson or Rush Limbaugh or Glenn Beck or somebody along those lines, okay, to give us an analogy of what is pissing people off today or pissing Republicans off today, and they're making money off of that because it's drawing in viewership and listenership. Anybody? Did my panel disappear?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening. I completely agree.
I agree.
I'm sitting at the back of the room listening.
You know, and to get to John's point, it's too far gone. We've lost that. Mm-hmm. We've lost, especially in the United States, we have lost the basis of straight cutting-edge journalism because everybody now has figured out they have to pick a side. And even though they don't want to pick a side, that's what the ratings are covering. That's what's drawing money. So if you got Tucker Carlson with his bow tie done up about 3 sizes too tight, causing his voice to go into a high-pitch squeal that he sounds like half the time, cutting off his guests so they're not able to answer a question, so he looks like the tough guy because he's the pilot of the program rather than being the navigator, okay? And you have a bunch of Republicans sitting in the Midwest or in the East, you know, you go, Tucker, you nail that Democrat, you get him, okay? Well, what that does is that drives up viewership. And that's why you see these politically affiliated shows have such huge ratings. That's why you see a guy like Alex Jones, who was supposed to be the anti-media, come out and all of a sudden he's making millions a year because he's picked a side. That's why if you come up to Canada, and I'm not saying we're better, okay? I'm not saying that at all. But if you come up to Canada, very few journalists up here are making big dollars. Very, very few. And that's because they're drawing it down the line. They aren't driven by the dollar. They are driven by the story. And if you actually Google online, CBS for a long time, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, was not hiring American journalists. They were hiring Canadians like Peter Jennings because they felt they were getting a more accurate view of what journalism was supposed to be the way it was back when we had Edward R. Murrow, when we had Walter Cronkite, and it wasn't bias.
I can agree with that.
Mm-hmm. But wasn't he just a talking head, really, for what was written?
No. See, that's the other thing. A lot of journalists will write their own script. Because if you try and read someone else's script... Okay, James, I'll give you an example. You and Elizabeth both have my script for the beginning of the show. How often do you nail it right?
I just let her do it.
But the whole point that I'm trying to make is she hasn't taken the time to write it in her own words to make it hers.
Okay. I see what you mean.
Okay, so what happens is you get an anchor. Say you're a 6 o'clock anchor. He'll arrive at the studio about 2 o'clock to start to prepare for the news. He goes through a meeting, run down with the reporters, okay, and then what they do is they go to their computer and they now type their own introductions.
Okay.
So that way the script, as it's coming down the teleprompter, actually is their own words. Then when they throw it to the reporter, whether the reporter is live on location, whether the reporter is already canned their tape of their story for the next 3 minutes, okay, then that they turn the story over to the reporter before coming back. So the anchor is actually writing every intro to their story. Now, that may not happen at, say, a place like CNN or a place like ABC. Now, we're talking nationally, not locally. Big difference. Okay? But in order for the anchor to sound so smooth, they are going to write it in their own words, and they are going to take the time to do that.
We had a anchor here locally, and somebody added the words "and a large tossed salad" to the end of one of his stories. He just read it right off the teleprompter, and the look on his face after that came out of his mouth, because it didn't make any sense, added to the story, the news story he read, and he just like, okay, we're gonna go to commercial, I guess now.
Well, you know what though, but because of the computer technology, you could mess with other people's scripts. I remember I was reading a sportscast, and a good buddy of mine, he went into my cast while I was reading it, and I would say my name, and then you're listening to the sports at 15 and 45 past the hour. Well, he changed my name to Big Fat Pig. Okay, and you were so concentrated on the words that you were reading, you don't have the ability. Your mind is picking up the words, and your mind is processing what your mouth is supposed to say on the teleprompter. Yes, in radio you can use a teleprompter as well. And what happens is when you are reading the script, you're so concentrated on the words and what that next word is, you don't want to butcher it. So you just about, and I went, and I'm a bit, and then I gave my name, and then I walked into where he was in the traffic department, and I'm like, you jerk, that's hilarious. You know, I said, you almost got me. And in the meantime, they're killing themselves in the newsroom. Right? They're absolutely destroying themselves laughing in the newsroom. But that's what happens. So you can slip it in because of a computer. Right? And it's like, when, in Anchorman, where somebody puts a question mark at the end and he goes, "I'm Ron Burgundy." Or "Go F yourself, San Diego." Okay? That is actually very real. Those situations can happen. You can manipulate the script. But the anchor, like in the situation you were talking about, they're not going to be prepared for it because they've written their script to the way they want. And that's how it works.
Oh, those guys. Well, it basically, my understanding, and this goes back a few years, but it's that whole "if it bleeds, it leads." It's fear-based media that gets the viewer or the listener, because that's what we as humans like. We like to drive by the car accident to see if we see somebody dead or blood. Actually, we don't like to see dead people, but we're looking for them, and we're looking for something with blood on it. It's that gore mentality. So, it's a Wolf Blitzer and CNN breaking news 3 days ago. It's like, that's not breaking news. You've been covering the same story for the last week, and you keep calling it breaking news. It's broken. All right? You guys didn't break it. No one broke it. It just happened. Quit calling it breaking news. It's irritating, and you look stupid.
Yeah, but I'll put a flip side on that, James, because you're a former cop. Okay? When I was in Constable. How about Constable?
Corporal.
Corporal, I apologize. All right. Mountie. How can we agree on Mountie?
Carry on.
Okay, thank you. When I was, and I mentioned this during John's show just a couple of nights ago, when I was still in broadcasting school in 1997, a medical building in the town I grew up in, which happened to be where my doctor's office was on fire, completely engulfed in flames. And I was working for a local radio station in Vancouver, doing some freelance work because they didn't have a reporter out in the valley where I live. And I'm walking to the media area where everybody's kind of congregating. I walked by a female police officer. And I said, man, my microphone was down, my machine was off, and I literally said to her, wow, that's a pretty big... I said, hi, how you doing tonight? She goes, good. I said, the media area? She goes, it's just over there. And I said, wow, that's a pretty big fire, eh? And she goes, what fire? And I went, you're serious? You're just hanging out on the street for nothing? Okay, but that was my introduction. So it does go both ways with the ignorance.
What ignorance?
What fire?
Why a duck? Keep going, because you lost me somewhere in there.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get to my question, because it kind of ties into Everett's here. And it goes back to what John St. Augustine had to say the other night. He said that the media may be controlled by corporations, but he's never seen an instance where a newsroom has been hoodwinked by government officials. Do any of you agree with this?
Oh, that's silly.
Hoodwinked. What about, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what about Roswell? When they first came out and said an alien craft crashed, and did not the government come back and say no? It was a weather balloon.
Yes, but they didn't tell the radio station at that time to say, by the way, you can't run this story. What they did was the government changed the story on their end and then held a press conference. There was nobody in the newsroom saying that you can't run a UFO story.
Okay.
There's some really, really good fake news in the Philippines right now, and it's on social media. Now, you got to imagine the Philippines use social media, I think, or Facebook more than any other group, statistically was reported, and Facebook is free. But if you wanted to go online, data is really, really expensive. So a lot of fake posts have been put out about one of their senators who says that she runs the largest drug cartel in the Philippines. And these have been repeated by the mainstream news off of Facebook. So she's in jail right now because basically they read all these reports, and the national police and who else has been getting involved, all the media kind of influenced by the government, another branch or another party in the government is making all this crap about this lady, and she's in prison awaiting trial on basically something she's never been involved in. So there's an example of actually one side of the government using media, kind of throwing this fake stuff out and letting media go nuts. And then the public themselves are hosed because they can't really look up the reality of what they're seeing in the little Facebook blurbs, because it just costs them too much to get online and look at the stuff. It's actually pretty bad.
But aren't the papers, is only one side of the story being reported? Are there no papers that are examining it and pointing this out, or is it just out there one-sided and floating around free?
Yeah, they're reporting it, but because the majority of the population get their news from Facebook, that's what's pushing her back.
That's just
and she was the one who ran the war on drugs. So she's isolated in prison because all the rest of the guys in prison are the guys she put in there. It's interesting. Rough. If I think you probably Google the Philippines and jailed senator, it'll probably come up on some of the, and look for it was a Canadian broadcaster out in Manila for the CBC interviewed her. So it was really weird. She was called the #1 drug lord in the whole Philippines, and that was the Speaker of the House calling her that from reading a Facebook post.
That is just crazy. Just crazy. It's scary when you hear things like that. Scary when you hear things like that. Shouldn't be that way. But that's the way everything is leaning. Eric, your question.
My question. Hold on a sec here. So, gifted kids, how do we help them? And are they paranormal magnets?
I think they are. I look at my own kids as an example of that. I think if you have kids who are open, and parents especially, who are willing to accept what the child is seeing and know the difference between, and learn the difference between what is imagination and what is actually real as to what the child is describing, I think it works for both. I think there are a lot of gifted kids. I think all kids are gifted. It's what we do as society that shuts them down.
Or parenting. Parenting can quelch the gift as well. And what we're doing in Forest Moon to help that, though, is when we find cases with gifted kids, we're educating both the parent and the child with a consent form on how to shield, how to develop the gift, and go from there. And actually, I have two of the Astral team that's taken that task on because they enjoy working with kids. So, how do we help them? Education. Education and identification, because you need to identify the gift first. And then you educate from that point.
What kind of gift? What if it is they're seeing spirits? What if they say they see somebody, and the parents are a little leery? Is this a paranormal gift, or is this a psychological issue? And then they take their child basically rightfully to a doctor who their first response is, well, let's give them this pill.
Right, exactly. And that's where we can, here's where we can focus. If we can find more psychologists, psychiatrists that are open-minded, work with them. That's one thing we're doing as well, is we actually have a psychiatrist in Tacoma that has identified that, okay, so her clients aren't psychiatric. It's got to be something else. And this individual's open-minded enough to recognize that maybe it is paranormal. And she actually had one of her clients that recommended us. So we've been starting to work with her, and she's actually getting, we sent them our pre-investigation questionnaire. She's going to go over it with the client. We'll get it. That takes care of the HIPAA issue. So if we can get more open-minded psychiatrists that will look at kids, talk to the parents, say, yes, it's not a psychiatric issue. That's the problem. We have to get past society.
But how can you do that when you have so many different people out there who are still very close-minded to the subject?
I guess promotion. Getting out there more.
But couldn't you say that's the benefit of what paranormal television has done, is it's awoken a lot of people to these experiences, that it's okay that you've had them. It's okay to talk about them.
It is, and that's probably one of the only benefits of paranormal TV, though.
But then couldn't you also say that these psychiatrists and psychologists who are firmly based in science look at these TV shows and go, well, that's just entertainment, and this child is coming in reenacting what he's seeing on TV?
That's true, too. And I'm sorry, but then the medication's only going to stifle it, and it's going to get worse if it's a paranormal issue.
So
how do you... Oh, go ahead, Dave.
No, please, finish.
How do you draw that line? How do you illustrate that something isn't a psychological issue versus a paranormal issue? I mean, if a child is drawing pictures of an imaginary friend and they kind of look a little creepy and a little weird, that can be taken either way, and it fully depends on the opinion of a medical professional. How do you start to open them up to the possibility? Because going back to the evidence isn't really working on anybody anymore to a certain degree.
It's not. And again, that's where awareness and education is key with that. And in that, depending on the team, we need to get more qualified teams out there to recognize that. If you have, say, a medium that comes in and can look at the picture, the family can pull out a photograph, and it's Aunt Glenda. That validates what the child's seeing. It's a matter of awareness, getting parents to be more aware of what their kids are doing. Most parents, they look at their kids and it's overactive imagination. They don't even think about the paranormal side, and that's a big part of the problem, because the first response is always going to be the parents. They're with the child all the time.
I understand. That's a lot to put on a parent who doesn't really understand the paranormal field, though, Coop.
Exactly. No, I understand that. And that's why we're trying to focus more on that. That's one area we are looking at.
But that's a tough thing to figure out.
It is. But that's, we always look for areas, and on the show, we always look for areas where we can improve on with the paranormal. That's one area we can try to improve on, because that helps our next generation of paranormal investigators too, when you look at it that way.
Do we need any more paranormal investigators?
Well, in 20 to 30 years, when we're all retired and done, we will. Where do you think the paranormal is going to be in 20 to 30 years?
That's a question to keep for the next panel, my friend. You can't go that deep right at the end of the show. You just can't.
I know it. Here's the thing, too, though. When it comes to the astral team, they go in. If there's nothing there, then we start looking at other areas. It could be psychiatric.
I get that.
And so that's one benefit with having an astral team as well, is if there's nothing there, they're going to see it from the astral, with the exception of fairies. Fairies is a hard one. Fairies have their own dimension and their own realm, and there's been cases where we went boots on ground and it was a fairy issue, and the astral team cleared out everything, besides the fairy, because they didn't see the fairy element of it. And that's where boots on ground comes handy as well, if it's a local case.
I'm hearing you. I'm here.
Again. Uh-huh. But again,
I need you to speed it up because I only got about 30 seconds.
Gotcha. Yeah, but again, that's where if there's nothing there, then you look at other avenues, psychiatric abuse.
Everett Thiemer, Eric Cooper, James Tyson, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Absolute pleasure. I'm going to wrap this thing up because my bag is packed. I'm ready to head out into the wilderness. The snow is gone. So I'm going to go find my Zen and my Chi in the mountains of British Columbia. Probably pick up a good radio signal as well so I could pick up Spaced Out Weekend with James Tyson and Elizabeth Anglin tomorrow night and on Sunday. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Hey, that's another month in the books. Man, it's moving fast. We'll see you in May, everyone. Do me a favor. Because we around here want to own the night. We need your help. Tell a friend. Tweet it out. Put it on your social media when we are blasting. Let's own the night together. Mr. Bumblefoot, are you almost ready to take us home? Not yet? Maybe in a couple of seconds. That works for me. SpacedOutRadio.com is our website. If you want to find out more information about what we do around here, I hope you check us out. Hope you tune it in. Hope you share it. Hope we do enough for you on a nightly basis because we love what we do for you. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.